name is Marle Cordeiro. I'm joined by
Jamie Kerstetter and Crouton.
And Crouton, of course, our third co-host. Today we want to start things off by giving you guys a little bit of advice, tips about being a pro, getting started for those of you at home who are thinking about quitting your job, may have already done it.
So I'll be talking a little bit about tournaments because I have gone to the dark side. But why don't you give them some tips on how to be a cash poker pro?
Yeah, my experience is almost all in live cash and almost all in Vegas. Couple of things that I think are mandatory for someone starting out is make sure you track your sessions, make sure you find somebody, if you can, that's better than you at poker, preferably just one person so it doesn't get confusing. A lot of times people will get in group chats and it will be overwhelming. And then study, and you need to study with a training site for sure. Get a training site subscription. It can be a little bit pricey maybe at first, but it is well worth it, and it is really the only way to improve, I think.
What training site would you recommend?
Run it once. But it's good because they have everything from like really basic stuff to really advanced stuff. It never ends. And there's just, I don't even know, dozens of pros on there. So you find someone that speaks your language. You need to find somebody that talks the way you can understand. And getting that kind of chemistry is key. And just going through the process of playing, writing down hands, talking about it with somebody, learning a new concept, playing, talking about it with somebody. And if you do that over and over again, guaranteed in 6 months, you're going to be way better. As far as like quitting your day job, I know that you get a lot of questions about this. I get less because I don't respond, but JK. But I think it's kind of a tough thing to say. I would say probably wait till you are making more money from poker than you are your side hustle or day job. But it's hard to say. It really is. And you are the only one that knows when you're ready. But I think that if you are consistently working at it and tracking and winning, and you're not fudging the numbers and you actually are winning consistently. Another big thing that I did when I was coming up was I was staked by somebody and coached by them, and they were really strict with me about making 10 big blinds an hour before I move up. So I played 1-2, and then when I made 20 big blinds an hour, over 500 hours at least, consistently, I could move up to 1-3, and then I played 1-3 at the Win, and then I played 2-5 at Bellagio, and I played every stake, and I made 10 big blinds an hour over at least $500, and that just kind of proves that you can beat it. And even $500 isn't really that much, but it's just like, and live, it's so hard to get enough sample to really.
You say that you're experiencing the good side of variance during that, then when you start losing, you move down.
Yeah, and
don't have too much pride to move down if you feel like you're in over your head.
Yeah, and also just like having somebody. I think that something I see pretty commonly in people is they just want to move up. They're so eager to move up, and I did the same thing. But I'm really grateful that that person literally was like forced me to play. I was like in misery playing 1-2 and 1-3 for so long, and I wanted to play 1-3 at the Win. And he's like, you can't buy in for 500. You have to play in for 2 at 300, and just continue to like prove that you can make 10 bigs an hour. So doing that is just builds fundamentals. And even myself, I've seen problems when I try to jump steps. I breezed past a couple of stakes when I got the invite to the big game, and I have like no experience playing 10-20 or 25-50, and I just like breezed right past that stake. And it shows, like there's cracks in my shit, but for sure. So you gotta, I would say, take baby steps and learn fundamentals. I think that I'm relatively not new to tournaments, but I think we put in a tournament this summer, and I was in a spot where you were like, oh, it's a fist pump call. You jammed the button.
I think I remember the spot, right? I think I jammed deuces from the button. You had ace-7 in the big blind, and it was a very short stack. I had blinded down a lot because it was like right before the money, and I think I had like 7 big blinds left or something like that by the time I got moved to your table, because I had made the money, and I'm like, okay, just looking for a spot where I can get my chips in, and I jammed deuces from the button, and it folded 2 in the big blind, and you were like, I don't know, and you're like in the tank, and you called, and you like apologized for beating me, and I was like, that's okay, like you have to call, you can't be folding an ace there. But it was nice to see though, because I'm like, you're playing in games for 50K. But you're like, I just don't know this spot. I'm like, oh, it's so nice to hear that, because I think some people are like, I play really big, I'm awesome. Like everything I do is good. I'm like, well, different variations of poker are like, I mean, I don't know anything about playing heads up cash. I could spend thousands of hours getting good at MTTs, and then someone's like, hey, play, like, here's this heads up cash hand I have, and I'd be like, no idea. It's totally different things. And like, just touching on that, there are people who win a tournament and then they're like, I am a poker god. I'm going to go play 100, 200, no limit. I won a tournament. I have this money. And I'm like, winning a tournament didn't make you better at cash overnight. If you were a barely winning 2-5 player the night before, you're a barely winning 2-5 player now with a really big bankroll. But I think a lot of people make that mistake. They think the only thing that's holding them down at lower stakes is the fact that they're not rich. And it's like, no, it's probably not that. Like, there are a couple people that, if you gave them a huge bankroll, they'd run it to the moon. But chances are you're not that person. That's like very rare to have someone who's like just naturally very good at poker. You have to work at it.
Yeah, and I think that like you said, every variation is so different. And where I struggle is that I'm really good at playing super deep cash, and I don't pay enough attention to the different, which you can talk more about this, but in tournaments, like, it's almost more important than ranges and actually playing good and game flow and actually just playing good poker. More important than that is like, hey, we're on the bubble. You need to like fold everything, or like, hey, we're like the bubble just burst. You need to play really aggressive and be putting on the pressure, like these kind of ICM things. And like, I don't know, these things are just so much more important than actually, I don't know, playing just standard ranges.
Yeah, there's something to it. I got super lucky and I won an Omaha 8 tournament the first time I ever played Omaha 8, and old men were not happy about it because that is their game, and I was such a fish and there were things I didn't know. I was learning about like what counterfeiting was in the middle of a hand. I'm like, wait, I don't win that one? And I'd be like, let me think on this for the next hour and realize like, oh, wait a second, best five. Okay, yeah, that's why he won. I was very bad at the actual game, but something that I wasn't bad at that they were bad at was tournament strategy, and like knowing that like I have a subpar hand that can probably only win half the pot. It's a high hand. It's like more of a PLO hand. But I'm the 7th person in this pot and I have position. And I'm putting in one big blind. And like, I'm going to lose this pot almost all the time. But when I win, it's going to be a really big pot. And I'm going to keep all of it. So I was figuring out things that were like tournament strategy things based on playing a ton of no limit hold'em tournaments. Where like the old guy's mad because that was not a good 08 hand. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure you'd beat me in cash. But in this tournament, like, I'm inflating pots and I'm maximizing variance because I know I'm not good. And I'm like doing things that I'm like, I know I need to do to beat people who are better at the game than me. And yeah, there's definitely a lot to tournaments that people who just play cash aren't thinking a lot about.
I have no fucking idea.
Like stack depth is sometimes more important than almost anything else.
And you don't think, like, it's so painful to me sometimes. Like, I'll get 7-8 suited in the hijack, and look, the next 3 people next to me have like 20 big blinds or less, so you have to like fold because you're gonna get shoved down so much or whatever. And it just pains me to just like muck that hand. Like, whereas if I'm playing deep stack cash, I'm like never just open mucking that hand in that position ever, unless I'm playing with like 8 crushers or something. But it's like those, I don't think about those things, and I'm like, oh fuck, I keep getting jammed on. And, I just flushed away 8 bigs, just getting jammed on having to fold.
And that's something too in cash though. You're going to have like very complex decisions that are mostly post flop where you're like, okay, I'm 200 big blinds deep and like, this is my range, this is his range. He 3-bet me from this position. I know this. And you're like used to these spots recurring. You're like, this is how I respond to these spots. In tournaments, you don't have the same spot twice ever. No. Like, you're always going to be a stack size versus a different stack size. At this stage of the tournament, are you close to the bubble? Are you a final table bubble? Are you nowhere near the money? All these things. Is it a rebuy? Do I think this guy is on his 14th bullet out of 30? Like, there's a lot of stuff that comes up in MTTs that you just never have to think about in cash. That's why I think it's very funny when someone wins a tournament and they're like, I'm a cash god. Let's go play in Ivy's room, or let's go play in Bobby's room. And I kind of feel like that's something that's like a really big pitfall for someone who's hit their first score. And you probably love that. Like, you're like, oh, cool, this guy who just won a bracelet. He used to be playing 2-5 and now he's like sauntering into Bobby's room. It's like that. I mean, I never want to be that person. I want to be the person who like is playing the stakes they could beat. Not the person that everyone like licks their chops when they walk to the back of the room.
It's so true, and I think there's definitely a rivalry between cash and tournament players sometimes. But it's just such a different skill set. this past series, I personally played so many events for the first time. And I learned so much. Every time I'm in a spot like that, it's solidified in my brain because now I remember that hand so well because it was you. I was in a hand very similarly later on in the tournament, and Chrissy B was next to me, and I remember a very similar spot against her. And just because it was solidified because it was against a friend, and like, you know, I know absolutely from now on that's I learn more from like experience and more so than just like memorizing a chart, for example. But yeah, it just takes time, and you got to be humbled. I've definitely, not to go on a tangent about myself, but this last year I've done so many things for the first time that have been so humbling.
Yeah.
And I've just been eating shit at them, but I'm like, okay, well, like,
just like that's something that we've talked about privately, that like things, you just want to be good at stuff right away.
Yeah.
You just want to be like, I'm a natural at something. But like, that's just not how life works for most things. Like, yeah, you'll find the random thing that you're like better than a normal person at. But then everything else, you just have to throw yourself into it and suck at it and just take criticism and like suck it all in and just like, I don't know. That's for me, it's hard because I'm like, oh, I want to think of myself as like good at things. But it's just like, if it's the first time you're doing it, you're probably not going to win. Like, you're probably going to be the worst player at the game the first time you play. You'll probably be the most nervous. I'm still nervous like when I move up stakes. And just whatever, do it anyway and learn from your mistakes because there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah. So we've both lived in Vegas for quite some time. I'm 5 years. How about you?
I'm just a year and a half now.
In Vegas? Mm-hmm. Is it that short?
Yeah. Last May was the first time I ever lived out here. And it is so awesome. This was the first. So I'm someone who gets like that seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
Every winter I'm just a sloth and I hate my life. This last winter I was like, wow, I still go for jogs and I still go and try to like meet up with friends and I'm still studying and doing all my stuff. I'm like, that's so weird. It's sunny. Like, I don't go through winter and I'm not, like usually I'm a hibernating bear that just is like, oh, just wake me up in April. But living out here is awesome. It's just, there's so much going on. Everyone who visits me too, like I hadn't seen certain friends in like a decade. I moved here. They're like, wait, you live in Vegas? Yeah, I'll see you next week. I literally saw three separate trips. They came out and and it's fun because, you don't do the touristy stuff when you're here living here. You just live a normal life. But then when people visit, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to show them Vegas. And we do all the touristy things and go to clubs and bars and go for hikes at Red Rock and things like that. And it's just like such a great place to live. Yeah, it's a great place to live. I don't do as much drinking as I would like to do, but I could help you with that.
I know. I've cut back. I moved here from New York, and when I was in New York, I was drinking so much. I don't know why. I was also younger, but I don't really party that much. That's a big, misconception I get asked a lot. It's like, do you just party all the time? I don't. I really don't. And Vegas is a very livable city. And I think as far as poker, it's probably one of, if not the toughest city to play poker in.
Yeah, that's a huge misconception. People think, oh, I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to like make it just like in Rounders. We're going to be Mikey and we're going to go take our shot in Vegas. There's a lot of good players who live here. And I feel like the mid-stakes games at least are tougher than anywhere else I've lived. The good spots are like LA, if you can go play at Commerce. Florida, you go play at the Hard Rock. There's a few good rooms in Florida. I don't know, where else would be your places to live? Maybe in the Midwest. I've played in Kansas City and places like that where I'm just like, man, the same player pool just always plays against each other. So like I don't know, if you're the winningest player in your group of 20, like why study? Until some like people from New Jersey come and...
Well, that's what I always say is that like, it's almost like I'm grateful for Vegas because this is all I knew for poker. This is like how hard I thought it was. And even when I was coming up playing all these different stakes, like, 1-3 at the Win is a pretty tough 1-3 game in the grand scheme of 1-3 games in this country. And I thought that was like normal. So then when I go to LA and Reno and all these places, I was like, this is like, I just sit here and just do anything halfway decent.
And you're going to make money.
People are just going to shovel me money. Yeah. And so it just kind of, that's the one good thing about Vegas is if you do play here, it's just like, it's like just training with the best, you know?
It's kind of how I have the opposite thing. Like I grew up in New Jersey. So whenever I go anywhere else, I feel like people are so nice.
I'm from Boston, so yeah, similar.
I'm just like, wow, everyone here is just so nice. And then it took a lot of different instances of that for me to just be like, oh wait, no, New Jersey people are just dicks.
Yeah.
like I'm just an asshole. So like that's my set point. But yeah, all jokes aside, like, yeah, Vegas is a tough place to be a cash player. One good thing is that like if you're not lazy about game selecting and moving casinos, like I'll go to Red Rock, there's a 2-5 game. Sometimes they have 5-10. Sometimes those break, there's nothing to play, and I go, okay, like I could wither at 1-3 or I can go find another game. And we're 20 minutes from the strip.
Yeah.
And then if you're on the strip, you could literally walk until you find a good game. So as long as you're kind of like diligent about making sure that you're not just like sitting in a game because you walked there and you're lazy, you can find a good game. But yeah, what you're saying is true, that like if this was the first place you ever played, you're like, man, poker's kind of tough.
It is kind of tough. But you know, every time I come back here, I'm just kind of grateful that, I mean, tough, but definitely not unbeatable. And especially in the low to mid stakes, you know, I think that, how do I want to phrase this? There's definitely a lack of studying overall still, even in Vegas. So if you are doing training sites, if you are talking hands with people and staying hungry, you're going to be way ahead of the game, and you're definitely going to be able to beat Vegas games from my experience. So just got to constantly stay hungry, I think. And, you know, maybe buy Pio. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a step like further down the road for most people, though. It's like spending a lot of money on solvers. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more. It used to be buy some poker books and learn from your poker books because there was nothing better. And I used to this was so long ago, I'm old, going on 2+2 and posting in high stakes MTTs because I used to play a lot online. And I would post a hand history and then just hope someone smart answered it. That was it. Like you did kind of answer each other's stuff. And like I would go in the smaller stakes MTTs and I'd answer questions for people that I felt comfortable helping. And then when I was in higher stakes, I was like, someone good, please come in and just answer this. But what happened a lot on there is that like you had to find people you trust because they're anonymous screen names. And it's like someone can just give you misinformation to be an asshole. And that's how you used to learn then. And then just like, what is this, maybe 7 or 8 years later, multiple different sites. You can buy subscriptions to, you could watch videos. You can find a coach through that too. Say that you're like, Jason Kuhn's my favorite to watch videos. Let's contact him. Like say you made the main event final table. Yeah. And you were looking for someone to help you on the rail. Like you have experience knowing who works for you and like who connects with you. And you could find more coaching that way. But that used to not exist. So you kind of had to just like hustle and try to find ways to learn on your own. Now it's like there's just so much out there that like if you're not actively trying to improve, like pretty sure most of the people you're playing against are. Yeah. And everything's beatable, people. Everything's beatable, that's for sure. So what's the next year look like for you? Next year? I'm one of those people that like, this is how was I ever a lawyer? Poker wise. I know, but like, how was I ever a lawyer? I'm like, I can't plan 3 days ahead. Yeah. I think the next big tournament I play is Best Bet Jacksonville. WPT, it's a 5K and there's going to be a bounty on me. So it's fun. That's where like, there's an extra little curve thrown in there that people are going to try to get me. And last year I ended up getting 60 big blinds in with jacks to nines. And I'm like, I'm never a person who can get 60 big blinds in with jacks and have them be good. Yeah. Because I usually have a pretty tight table image. But this time it was like a slam dunk. For sure. And right after that, Run It Up Reno. Which is like the palate cleanser of the poker world. Like if you ever feel like, oh, poker's negative, like people are kind of mean, everyone's so critical, then you go to Run It Up Reno and like everyone is nice to you. Yeah. They even hire like the nice floor people from other casinos to go there. They have Joe. And like the fun dealers that will go out for drinks after. Yeah. And it's just a really great place to go. That's what we should recommend for people who are new to poker. Is Run It Up. You can go there and you could spend like a couple thousand and play like 10 tournaments. Yeah. Yeah, definitely going into a fun series. You get some bang for your buck, and you could network and meet some cool people to like be friends with, and I don't know, maybe form a mentoring relationship with. I'm a little bit burnt out of tournaments myself after the series. Yeah, I'm debating if I'm going to play, any in the near future, but I think I'm going to refocus my energy on cash. It's such a drain too for me. I actually heard this crazy stat. My friend was telling me about tournament makeup and the makeup he's in, and I heard the number and I was like, oh, it sounds like a lot. Apparently he said it's like a rule: if you can win a tournament of the average buy-in that you play and be out of makeup, then you're in normal standard deviation
of.
I've never heard that put like that before. I'm trying to think though what that would mean.
So if you play average, it's like 3Ks.
Do that though, because like
if you average 3K, then if first for a 3K it'd be like 150,000.
Yeah, there's so much variance in prize pools though. It's like, hey, if you have that feeling, but it's over WSOP, I'm like, hey, like it's okay. Like I'm only 8.8 million in makeup, and I play 10Ks. It'll be fine. Yeah,
exactly. I could be out if I win it. If I win the main, I was like, that's crazy. I mean, but whether or not the stat is accurate, the swings in tournaments are definitely bigger, and it's jarring to me because it's not that much in cash for me.
Yeah, I think the best thing that could have ever happened to you is for you not to have an amazing summer this past summer.
I think so.
Like that's what brings you to the dark side. You're like, oh, tournaments are great. Like, why would I want to grind for like $100 an hour when I could make like 300K in one day?
I seriously and it definitely. I didn't have a disaster over summer, but I definitely did not. I definitely lost money, and made some mistakes. I was in a couple of just like big spots in big tournaments. I played 2,500 that I maxed late reg, and I like stone bubbled it in this spot that was like super cuspy where we were like 5 from the money, and I didn't stone, but I like 5 bubbled, basically bubbled 150 paid, and this guy. A huge stack opens hijack min raise, and I'm cut off with king queen of clubs with 13 bigs, 5 from the money, and I was just like, I don't know these spots. Like it seems to me it's the 13 bigs, it's a fist pump shove, but come to find out it was like very cuspy. I think big blind ended up waking up with 10s, and I lost the flip, but it was like a devastating moment to me because I was like, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know these spots. Like, this is cash, and I know these spots so well. If you have 100 big blinds or 50 big blinds, just fist pump, get it in. But I definitely learned my lesson just being in those spots and being like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's like, you got to study before you get in that spot again, because it does feel crappy to be like, oh, this is for a lot of money, and I just don't know this yet.
Yeah, but or like it feels like ace queen would be a shove, but. I don't know, but King Jack obviously isn't, so I don't know. But maybe, I don't know. It's tough. It's very tough, and, we're grinding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our intro to to trying to get into cash or MTTs.
Yeah.
It's hard in the streets. What are our main takeaways? Move to Florida.
Yes. Florida is great.
Or Reno.
Reno is great. Peppermill, shout out Peppermill. It's like one of the best casinos in the country, and highly recommend it. This is a good time to thank our sponsors, Run It Once poker site. You can play if you are not in the United States, which we are, unfortunately. But if you are outside of the United States, they have so many new features and really awesome games.
Yep, you can sign up through once.run/play and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to €600. Along with the 51% rake back they give through their in-game reward system, Splash the Pot. And with Run It Once training, you can learn from some of the best players in the world, much better than us. They play some of the highest stakes. And if you sign up now through once.run/learn, you get access to 3 free elite videos to check out.
So you're here, you made it to Vegas, you quit your job, and now you get to play poker. So here are some things to not do and some common questions that I get asked. I'm sure you can add to this, but one of the biggest things that's about staking and buying action. This is such a big thing in poker that it's surprisingly to me, a lot of people don't understand or even knew it existed a lot of the times. What's been your experience with staking? Have you ever staked someone or bought action of somebody, and how did that work?
When I was still a lawyer and I didn't get to play that much poker, that's kind of how I would mitigate that sad feeling of, oh, I have to miss this big WPT, or I can't go out for the summer for WSOP. I would go on 2+2 Marketplace, and I would find what I thought were good buys, doing research by looking up their screen names online on Official Poker Report, and basically just trying to spend my money wisely, but mostly I just wanted to sweat. For me, it was like, is this person going to send me updates? Am I going to feel like I'm there? And, so the first thing I look at is, like, do I think this person can win? Second is if they're trustworthy, if there's someone that I feel like if I give them the money, they're going to play the tournament, send me a receipt, and pay me if they win, which should go without saying. But in poker, there's been some shadiness. And that was 2 things. What was my 3rd thing? It's gone.
Basically, don't be a douche and be trustworthy. I think as far as staking, I've had a decent amount of experience with it. I think we were talking about that it used to be insanely easy to get a stake, and basically anybody who was halfway decent could get a stake. And it was because it was so much easier back then. I don't know.
There were way more recreational players. It was right during the poker boom that anyone who'd ever watched poker before or played with their friends or family were like, I'm going out to the World Series. Like, I'm going to make it big. That moneymaker guy did it. I could do it too. So if you were someone who took poker even like semi-seriously, if you're someone who's read a few poker books, who have a few poker friends you run hand histories by, if you're someone who's even taken the time to figure out probabilities of hitting hands and things like that, that was going to be enough to beat the average poker player at the time. So you would have these stables of horses. You'd have a backer who's like, okay, are you willing to spend some time and work on your game? Are you willing to post in this chat when you have hands you have trouble with? If you're willing to do those things, you're a positive investment for them. And that's how it used to be. So you just had to prove that you're a trustworthy person, you're willing to do a little bit of work, and you could find yourself in some tournaments. But now it's like there's limited money going around, a little bit more limited interest in poker.
Yeah.
So you have to actually be a really good buy. You have to be like a really good player to find a stake these days.
Yeah, and obviously I think the higher you play, the even more difficult it is, playing, just seeing how many people can afford like nosebleeds these days. It's not that many anymore, and it's just immense trust. Even for myself, with being staked for nosebleeds, it's a lot of it's a lot of pressure when someone just hands you hundreds of thousands of dollars and says, "Okay, just hang on to that for me, put it under your mattress or whatever." It's like, so. And just like a test in being organized too. Like I make spreadsheets and I like keep track of everything, and I make sure every dollar is accounted for and everything. So it is pretty common. What percentage of poker players would you say are staked?
It's
so hard to say.
Unknowable because so many people are private about it.
Yeah.
But if you ask high rollers, almost everyone has sold pieces or swapped in those big 100K buy-ins and 300K buy-ins. There's not as much shame surrounding it anymore. I think people used to pretend it was always their own money. But when they went from playing 10Ks to 25Ks, 100Ks, now there's $1 million buy-in. I'm like, I don't know if there's any pros who had 100% of the $1 million buy-in.
Probably not.
It's just a fact of life that you swap and you sell. So I'd say almost everyone in poker has at least swapped or sold at some point in their career. The people who are fully staked has gone down as far as I know. There used to be quite a few backers that had huge stables of horses when poker was just so beatable and there was free money going around, but a lot of them have been pared down a lot because, someone who was a marginally winning player 5 years ago, unless they've done a lot of work, are now a losing player. So obviously backers are not looking to throw a bunch of money towards losing players. So I think people who are fully backed probably went down, but I know, especially during WSOP, especially during W Coop, Scoop, some of the really expensive tournaments that like most players probably sell some action.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, I think the goal of anybody should be to be on your own money. With the exception of, I think that if you are going to play the biggest tournaments in the world, you're always going to have to sell a little bit, but, and at least in the beginning, I think one of the main merits to getting staked is just that great coaching. Of course, you can get coaching from a friend or somebody, but when the person stakes you, to just have that extra added investment and added interest in making sure that every hand you send them, they go in depth with you and make sure. So that's another added thing to it, but eventually it kind of hurts to be giving away half your profits. And
that's kind of what's good.
It stings.
Selling to people that you really like. Like if I have the option, if multiple people want action, I really like selling to people that are my friends, or it's like, hey, if I want a bracelet, how would it feel to hand 100K to this guy? Am I going to be like, God damn it?
Yeah.
Or is it like, hey, I'm giving Marle 100K, like, yay.
For sure.
So you tend to try to sell to people that you like, people that maybe believe in you, and not as much to strangers. But then again, like, what if you really suck? You should sell to strangers. Yeah. If I'm going to light money on fire, I don't want to light your money on fire or Crouton's money on fire.
Exactly. If you're going to just punt, then might as well punt, some douche's money.
Giving great advice today.
On that same note, as far as something that I wanted to talk about, I've talked about in my vlog in a joking way, but it's called micro edge seeking, aka I like to call it gimmicks. And it's something that I'm seeing more and more in the live cash streets. And basically what it is just people who seem to focus like most of their energy on things outside of actually just getting better at actual poker, and so much more about table changing, game seat selecting, like bum hunting fish, these kind of things. It's kind of like those things matter. They really do. But there's something to be said for just like sitting in the seat for 8 hours and just getting good and focusing on just being good. For me, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for table selecting. Like what I was talking about earlier, if you're at a casino and like it's just dead and you're sitting there, you're like, well, my hourly is like $45 an hour. In this place, it's $12 an hour because it's just all people who are like folding and they're just bored and whatever. Like, I think those are times you just go, like, just move.
Yeah.
I think like the things that annoy me that you're talking about are like if someone's like, oh, that seat just opened, and they move to the like run to the seat to the left of the fish, and like that guy busts and they move to the seat of the next, like to the left of the next worst fish, and I'm like, these people know what you're doing, like they can feel it that you're like trying to just make sure you can isolate them the whole time, and it's just like whatever, it's fair game though. There's nothing like bad etiquette about that. It's just kind of meh. The thing that I think is like the worst etiquette that like so many pros are guilty of, there'll be one guy who's like a major whale in a game. That guy gets up, and before he's even at the cashier, 5 people leave and they're behind him cashing out. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't wait 5 minutes for this person. Like, it's not just about the fact that you don't want to tell this person they're bad so that they don't come back. It's also just like, be a decent human being. Like, do you really want to make this guy know that he's bad? Do you want to make him feel bad? Because it almost it looks intentional sometimes. And I'm like, oh, you want to just tell this person they're bad. And like that kind of stuff where I'm like, it's bad for your bottom line in the future, but it's also just like really bad behavior as a human to do that.
I gotta tell you though, my goal is to be the whale. My goal, and it's so great because, I mean, think about it. If you're that guy, you all these pros are grinding it out, and you just come in and you've got so much money, it doesn't mean anything to you. And so what? They're laughing at you. This is like a drop in the bucket for you. Yeah. I would love that. And they're just
some people don't realize that person's like a life crusher.
Oh,
but they're not good at a card game.
Like, and they could be if they tried. They just have bigger fish to fry. They just own a business, or they're a celebrity or something. And it's that's the dream to me. So
I would never fold anything. I would chase every flush draw and be like, see you at the river.
Yeah, and just feel so good. And it's like because I think that no matter what stake you play, we all have those moments of I don't want to say punting, but playing for fun. So. We've all played a drunken 1-2 game with our friends, or play 1 cent 2 cent online drunk because you just want to blow off some steam or whatever. And it feels so good to do that. And imagine if you could just do that at every stake and every event.
And you show up and everyone's just happy. They're like, Marle's here. And you're like, yep, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't have to grind it out for a living.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd be interested. And I also feel like the quote unquote whales aren't stupid. It's always fascinating to me that, poker is kind of an elitist, privileged hobby. And so people who can play it at any level, but especially high stakes, they're very smart people. So they know what's going on. And
that's what insults their intelligence when you just like stand up immediately. Like, oh, whale's leaving. It's like, they don't have to hear that to know what's happening here. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know. That's kind of crummy. I just don't usually want to make people feel bad like that. So it's just like, I don't know, have a little more class, wait your 5 minutes. Oh my God, there was one time at Borgata that was like the most ridiculous. The guy just got up to eat dinner and everyone sat out until he came back from dinner. And I was just mad at everyone at the table. I'm like, you guys are so dumb.
I'm like so speechless. Yeah. They were all got a bathroom break. He came back from dinner and they're like, oh, wait, he's back? He's back, okay, everyone.
Guys. Game on. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And also I'm like, how bad are you at poker that like, you can't play with these other regs. Like, that's where I totally agree with you that like if you feel like you can't beat the stake you're at unless some magical unicorn of a whale sits down, then you're not beating that stake. You should probably move down one.
Yeah, and there are also like there's also things that happen in poker that are just etiquette that I think that I'm always just like willing to do, and maybe it's wrong, but for example, when you play a little bit bigger stakes, you have to get the game going. So you'll sit 5-handed with 4 regs for 30 minutes or an hour and play in like a shitty game, but it's just to get the game going. And you just kind of bite that bullet of, okay, well, like, I'm just gonna like because once you get it going, people just kind of flock to it and they see you sitting there. So a lot of regs, they'll like circle around and they'll like hawk around it and wait for a fish to come, or whatever, a weaker player that they perceive. But it's like, dude, if you like, it's not that big of a deal to your hourly, just play tighter.
Yeah.
Just don't go for everything. Just sit there and kind of, do your thing, have a drink, have a conversation, and it's all good. Or like if people want to straddle or they want to do bomb pots.
Yeah. You can play along.
Play along. It's bad. Everyone knows that straddling is not good for, your hourly, but it is what it is.
I have a great nit punishing story that'll make all the people who aren't nits feel great. I was at Parks. There's a 10-10 game, and it was a must move to a main game. And the way that like I got there late, so I'm just 4-handed at a must move, and the main game is solid. Turns out the 4-handed must move was the most magical game I played in my entire life. He's having an awesome dream, by the way. Get it, Crouton.
He's thinking about that game.
Crouton. So nobody wanted to leave the main game because my game was so amazing that the feeder game, feeding to the main game, like they were like, yes, licking their chops, waiting for all the fish, including me to go.
Including me.
But none of them thought of this idea that perhaps they should just all flip for who has to get up, because then at least they'll have like one easy player coming. Instead, I sat there for 3 hours and played 4-handed in the best game I've ever played in because none of them would leave.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And I was just looking at that table, like how silly everyone is. Like they're all like nitty regs that are just like not going home because they knew that there were people who were going to lose money to them. But then like none of them played against each other. None of them busted each other, and nobody left. So I just got to play shorthanded. And it's just like, this is ridiculous. But this is like,
for sure,
there's a lot of that going on where people are like,
just take one for the team a little bit, I think, and sit in like a shitty game, or, have the worst seat in the table even, and don't get the seat change button and these kind of things. And I, maybe I'm a fish, but I'm always like the one that's like, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah. I like that with the stuff that makes rec players happy. I was a rec player for a long time. Like I liked playing after work. I was a lawyer and I would go play 5-10 after work, and I definitely wasn't a great player. But I liked the fact that certain people would gamble. I liked being like red or black flops, like things that make you feel like you're gambling and not just like grinding. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff now that like if people propose it, I'm like, sure. Yeah. Like they're even EV. It's not a big deal. Like when you're doing flips every hour or something for $100, you're in the long run not winning or losing. So just do it. If it's going to make people happy and feel like they had fun, think about like the health of poker as a whole, and just like hope that people go home being like, I had fun and I want to do that next week.
Yeah. Something that's like obviously a much bigger issue in the same kind of vein is private games and cheating and collusion. I've had pretty little experience with it, but this is something that obviously game selecting and this kind of stuff is huge when the game you're in is being rigged, obviously.
Have you had, like, I've heard rumblings of that when I used to play in underground games in New York. There were ones that were like, avoid this game, and I'm like, I'll take your word for it, but I actually don't feel like I've ever noticed it myself. Like I don't, there's a law school game where I caught a kid cheating, but that's beyond
the
ridiculous.
Story is crazy.
Yeah. I can give you that story to wrap this one up after.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I've definitely...
This is the best dream. Crew, what are you doing, dude? He was like convulsing.
He's in and out of sleep. He just woke up like, huh? Where am I? Am I on TV?
It's like, I'm on a podcast? Oh.
I have had some experience with it. People are just getting really clever, and it's not as simple anymore as they just scratch the card or they bend the card, and things are really complex. So it is something to consider, especially like as games are becoming private. I think that it's definitely something to consider, and people are scummy sometimes, and they will just do every edge they can to win, and definitely think it's happening more than you think. So, keep that in mind. And it's definitely, we're spoiled in casinos, having a box and having that extra safety and nice things going on. So I think play in a casino if you can, but but sometimes you can't avoid it.
I can give you guys a quick 60-second ridiculous story that is just like maybe my favorite, most movie-like story that's ever happened to me. I was playing in a game at Michigan Law School where you pay infinite money per year. It's like $50K a year to go there. And we were playing a $20 buy-in game where you could buy in a couple times a night, but you're never going to be stuck more than like $100. I caught a guy, he was doing something weird with the deck because we would have 2 decks. One would be shuffled and the other one would be dealing. And you don't watch your friends, you know, because it's just like, I'm not in a casino. I don't think when someone's marking the cards or cheating. So I never paid attention. I was like, oh man, that kid really shuffles weird. He's shuffling under the table. I'm like, all right. So then I look for a couple more times that he shuffled and I'm like, that's definitely weird. I tell my other friend, Mike, you should probably watch this because it's weird. He's like, oh, what, you think someone's going to cheat in this game? I'm like, just please watch. He goes, okay. He watches him. He goes, no way. So the next week we're like, let's just make sure it's real. We watch again. He's like, yeah. Next time I bring my laptop and face it down so that I can record it and pretend I'm looking for like iTunes.
Yeah.
Take a video of it. Ask him, hey, so you're like the biggest winner in this game. Do you know how much you're up this year? He's like, yeah, like $3,000. I'm like, wow. And like a $20 rebuy game. That's amazing. I was like, you're going to want to bring that next week. He goes, what? I was like, yeah, I have a video of you cheating. And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm going to send it to our whole listserv and all the judges and lawyers and stuff. He just brought the $3K, left, and never spoke to anyone again.
It's crazy.
So like I was part of a sting operation, which I feel like even if I live 150 years, like will be the coolest thing.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And never saw him again.
No, how could he ever show up again?
Yeah. It's
like,
crazy. He's like in school to be a lawyer too. And
that was my one thing. I was like, should I just send it anyway?
Yeah.
Like it's just scummy because I'm like, you never know someone's circumstance. I did ask him, I'm like, is your wife sick? Is something wrong that you want to talk about? And he's like, no, what do you mean? And then I'm like, okay, you're going to have to pay all that money back then. And then he was like, damn, I should have just said she was sick.
Yeah, I know.
But that was the kind of thing where I'm like, should I tell people because he's going to be someone's lawyer one day and he's going to be trusted with their money, but I don't know. I'm like, I'm not into ruining someone's life, you know?
Yeah.
But
it's a really tough situation.
That's a game with friends too, where I'm just like, man, poker's a rough game.
It is. And I think that, you know, I don't know. It's always just good to keep your eyes open. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest piece of advice and you never know. Yeah. But
you hear that, buddy? Keep your eyes open for more than 10 seconds consecutively.
Or bring a guard dog with you. Bring a dog.
Yeah, you guys can see from here he's extremely vicious. Mm-hmm. Don't mess with me.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up. We are again going to start with the hands probably next time.
You guys have to send them to us because we want I don't know. I have a couple stored up. I don't want to start out by bragging about the worst punts that anyone's ever seen. So we want yours.
Yep.
So hit us up at asplayed@runitoonce.com.
Here you go. Next time, guys. Peace.